Welcome back to another episode of The Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Laurin and today I'm joined by Rick, our team mental health consultant, to answer a question about finding your purpose. So somebody sent this question in, and I thought it was a really great question and something that I know a lot of people certainly struggle with in some capacity. Maybe not this exact capacity, but definitely have felt this before. How do you figure out your purpose? Can you unpack this? I feel like I've had a bazillion jobs and careers in my life, and I'm still feeling this emptiness and lack of fulfillment when I go to work. I get bored with everything that I do. I swear I'm a very hard worker. I do my best. I've been told I'm a great leader and a great team player. I leave my jobs feeling guilty because I care about the people I work with. I feel like my time and effort is valued, yet it's still not enough. I listen to podcast after podcast on being disciplined, pursuing your dreams, take the risk, etc., and it inspires me so much, but to what? I'm in my mid-30s and I feel like I'm 18 again, trying to figure out what the heck to do with my life. Crying emoji. I had left that in there so I could remember to say it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all emojis.
Yes, especially the melting one. It's my personal favorite. You don't know what it means. It's just a lot of emotions in one.
To me, there's a couple of different questions this person's asking. By and large, first question would be, how do you find meaning and purpose? But then the second questions I hear her really kind of struggling with is finding meaning and purpose in her career, which is a very different thing. First and foremost, because this is one of our short podcasts, I'm going to try and keep it succinct.
I'm rolling my eyes if you guys are not watching the video.
First and foremost, I would advise her, maybe she wants to spend some time with a vocational counselor, somebody who can help her find something that's a little bit more specific and geared to a career that addresses more of her talents and what she really wants to be doing. Sometimes vocational counseling can really help kind of add a direction when you feel like you have no direction. So I feel like this person's really struggling with their career. And I feel like also that this is a common pitfall for a lot of people, is that they assume or they place so much emphasis on being able to find meaning and value, and they always relate it to just their career. And it's like, there's a lot of other aspects of your life. And so oftentimes what I find is people are like, I want a career that means something to me, but the rest of their life is just as kind of ambiguous as their career. And they don't have anything else that's fulfilling them in any other way. Like, you've all heard me use the phrase like clinically significant impairment in the following areas: physical, social, occupational, financial, etc. What are the other areas of your life? And the reason I bring that up is to say, look, let's look at all the aspects of your life. And are you finding meaning and fulfillment in any of those? Because if you aren't, it's not just your career that's creating this. And so we focus on like one piece of the puzzle, but we ignore the rest of it. And so I really want to I would love to sit down with this person and be like, okay, let's talk about the rest of your life and what you're doing, your hobbies, your interests, your social circle, your family, your interpersonal relationships. Like, what meaning, what value, what purpose are you placing in those? And it's totally okay. I also want to tell the person who wrote this question to be in your mid-30s and to feel confused. It's okay. People get lost. We get kind of wrapped up in the intensity of emotions, and we oftentimes associate and dive into things that are supposed to be bigger than us, right? In the sense of, people are always trying to attach themselves to a cause that is really significant and impactful, right? People are missing the idea of what meaning of life is and what existential is and what logotherapy is. And so really what I want to bring this back to is kind of like a Viktor Frankl particular space, in that one of the three values that he places, and this will hopefully kind of help people conceptualize and find a space that is a little bit more meaningful to them. There's three basic values that the entire therapy is based off of. Number one, or all three of them, are creative, experiential, and attitudes. And so the process of being creative and creating something, like, what are you doing in your life in any aspect right now that is creative, where you're growing, developing, that you're nurturing something, that you're in that process, that you're engaged in it. I've always been envious of artists. Like, we have a really talented artist that we train with. Her name's Hannah. I've always been really kind of in awe of people who are able to take something conceptual in their head and like manifest it into existence. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. That to me is so foreign, but I'm inspired by it. And so I'm always a little bit like in awe of people who are able to do that so easily and so readily, because I'm like, oh, that part's missing from me. And I have to work really hard to find things to create. Even my job, at the end of the day, if I'm fortunate enough, like, people will say thank you, or they give you positive feedback in regards to their experiences, but oftentimes people will just kind of like just stop coming because they're done, or they've worked through whatever it is that they're going through. And there's no like, when I'm done, there's no building that's been built. There's nothing to like touch or hold or grab. And so creative is a part of it. But for most people, I find that they're lacking in this area too. They're not very creative. The second part is the experiential part. People have gotten lost in what it means to experience life. To go back to Viktor Frankl's book, the one that I have referenced many times, and I will continue to reference because it's such a huge impact in our field, is there's a part in the book where he's talking about where him and some of the other inmates at the death camp.
Share the book. You didn't share the book.
Sorry. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a survivor of 2 Nazi prison death camps. And there's a scene where several of the I keep calling them inmates, but prisoners, they go out, and while they're in this death camp, they simply watch a sunset. That's experiential. They're experiencing life. And I think we try to attach so much meaning and value into every step that we take, and that everything has to be this grand plan and this huge design, and it has to be so impactful to the rest of the world and the people around us. And social media has amplified this 1,000 times over, that we have forgotten what it means to experience the beauty of life and the simplicity of it, and to experience it, period. To watch a sunset. When was the last time you did that? When was the last time you saw the sun rise, or sat in stillness at a lake, or saw some other amazing thing that is around us and experienced life? And when you look at it in that sense, you're no longer searching for meaning, because it's right in front of you in the experience, in being who you are and existing in this moment. And the last one is the attitude, right? And this is very much what the book espouses. It talks about your ability to frame mentally what it is that you're going through, and to find the silver lining, if you want to use a little bit more of a cliche, right? What's the hidden value in what it is that you're going through? The pain existed for a reason, the suffering. Were you able to define the meaning and purpose in it? And that is based solely off of your attitude. This can either be the worst experience of your life or the best experience of your life. In his book, he also talks about what it meant to be in a death camp, completely naked, stripped of everything, and the only thing they had was acceptance of death, was the idea that this is a part of my life. And they've accepted that space. Their attitude, that change, that reference, because they had nothing else. They were stripped of everything. And
they had nobody else.
And they didn't. They only had the people who were in there, and every minute of every day they were going to die.
Rapidly changing.
Yeah. And so I think when you look at those values, to put this, to kind of put a capsule around this, is to look at your aspect of your life and to say, look, am I being creative? What am I experiencing? And what is my attitude toward those things? Otherwise, there's a lot of other things you could do. I could sit there and say, list your values out. And are those values reflective in your relationships, in your work, in your social life, in the hobbies and interests that you're doing? And if they're not, get in alignment with those. What career aligns with those values? What relationships align with these perspectives and these ideals? And you're going to have to make some compromises probably, because maybe these values don't produce a lifestyle that is conducive to what you want to live. And then we can start talking about materialistic things, and that goes down a whole nother rabbit hole. But this is about finding more meaning and value and purpose. First thing I want to tell that person, step back from just your career and focus on all the other aspects of your life. Look at the creative, the experiential, your attitude toward those things, and incorporate all of that.
I think one of the biggest things that you said there that I know I've personally experienced is that experiential aspect, right? It's taking time to go for a walk. It's taking time to, when I'm on a walk, actually looking at the trees. And like, this is going to sound crazy, but like literally noticing like the leaves and the texture, and like, how does the wind feel when I'm sitting here? And like, what does this actually look like? And like finding the peace in those moments. And literally it completely changes everything. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, fortunately or unfortunately, of social media is that it makes everything look super dramatic, right? Mm-hmm. So anybody who's listening probably has seen a reel, right? And when you make a reel, you're doing all these quick transitions and you're getting these shots, and everything looks really crazy, right? Like I can put together, I'm thinking of one right now, like I put together one of a weekend, right? Just a few different things that I did during that weekend. And they were all kind of small things, but the way that you filmed it and edited it, it looked pretty fucking cool, right? And not saying that it wasn't a great weekend, but they were just these small kind of tiny parts. It made it seem so much bigger than it actually was, but it didn't produce the meaning. Like, I know what that meant. I can look at that and say, wow, I know how I felt in these moments, but just watching it, you might not be able to see that. And you would only be seeing the surface level of, look at all these things that somebody's doing. And that completely robs you of any type of experience or any type of meaning when you're only viewing it in that surface level. And it's really hard because it's amazing to be able to showcase things, and that kind of is creative, right? Like, I have so much respect for people who are able to like have a vision of like videoing something and the angles and the edit. Like, that's all so absolutely amazing. So I have a deep appreciation for that, and I can look at things and appreciate it for that. But it is really easy to just look at those types of things on a surface level and not really know what the feeling was behind that until you're actually experiencing it. And I know something for me that really helped was sitting down one day and being like, what constitutes like a perfect day, right? Like, just what are some things, and not like, I won the lottery, like actual things that you could do on a day-to-day basis, and really actually recognizing, okay, like whatever, 10 things, who knows? I don't remember the list, but if there's 10 things, okay, I'm not going to be able to do all 10 of those things in every day, most likely, but can I do a few of those things? Can I get 3 of those done? And again, these are small things. These aren't like, I went to Mars. Like, this is like, I had a great cup of coffee and I went for a walk, like something like that, right? Like, what constitutes like a really great moment for you? And like starting to incorporate those things slowly into your day. And as soon as I read the question, I had the same feedback, like, okay, this isn't necessarily just a job thing. And I think a lot of people want to romanticize this perfect, meaningful career. And there's nothing wrong with having a meaningful, amazing career, but that is not the only thing
avenue
in your life
to
and
accomplish it. Yeah.
It's also important to recognize that people who do have really meaningful careers, it's not like they just wake up every day and everything's great. You know, like, I can't fucking stand when people are like, if you love what you do, you don't work. Bro, shut the fuck up. You can love what you do, but there are still things that you're going to have to do on a daily basis for as long as you are employed that you are not going to want to do. And that goes for also when you're retired. There's just going to be things on a daily basis that you have to do that you're not going to enjoy. And obviously, there's a huge difference of having fulfilling work versus soul-sucking, draining, pointless work. I'm not trying to say that. There certainly is. There's certainly dead-end jobs. There's certainly things where you're not valued. But this question in particular didn't seem like that, right? It seemed like this was work of value, working around people that were enjoyable, built you up, all of this. So it really, again, kind of spoke to me like, okay, what are some other areas? And I think that, again, whether it's social media or reality TV or whatever it is, like, people think that every day has to be this like glamorous, amazing day. And that's just not going to be the reality, no matter what job. It's not going to be like the next shiny object is always going to be the next shiny object until there's another one. And that could be said for jobs and really everything else.
Yeah. And that's the experiential part, right? What is the experience that you're going for? And when you look at a sunset, which is something that occurs every single day, and we've taken it for granted and we don't do those things, we don't walk. One of the people that I follow, Karina, one of your coaches, I think she's done a really great job, at least on social media lately, of producing this part in her stories. Like, I see her being like going for a walk, sitting by the beach or enjoying a spot by the lake. I've seen Karina kind of filling her life with more of the fundamental experiences, that are there. And so, yeah, I think, when people are talking about meaning and value, I think sometimes we get too locked in on just our career. And I could say, well, are you volunteering your time anywhere? What hobbies and interests do you have that you're experiencing these same values that create meaning in your life? Like, I can look at, various people throughout their life, and I can be like, okay, this makes sense why they're doing this, because this is also reflective of who they are and what they see in the world and what they see in themselves. And all of those things kind of align up. But I think sometimes it's also okay to say, like, okay, in order to provide these things in my life, I maybe won't have a career that is super meaningful in the sense of giving back to society, but provides the quality of life that I want for my family. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a good provider, because being a good provider can also be meaning and value in a person's life. You may not see the meaning and value in some of the things that you're currently doing. And so I think sometimes we also have a tendency to project all the things that are missing from my life instead of the things that I am really great at, right? Like, it's a stupid kid's book. It's called Excellent Ed, and it's about this dog that I read to my son, and Ed wants to know why he thinks he's not excellent enough to be in the family because he can't do all the things that the humans do. But at the end of the book, you start recognizing that Ed is really great at these things. He just never recognized it. And so suddenly Ed feels excellent because he's been able to recognize his value and his purpose. Excellent, Ed. Check it out.
Excellent, Ed. That's cute.
Yeah.
The other thing too, and I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, and we've done a podcast on this with Strength Finders. It's just one of many tests, but I think it's a really, really great test specifically for vocational things, right? Like occupationally, it goes through different, strength. It shows you your different strengths and, whether you're more like execution based or, your strategy thinking, or you're more of like an influential person, et cetera, et cetera. And again, not saying that like you take this test and you're like, oh, I have my whole life figured out, but it does kind of point you in the direction of maybe more where you would be suited if this is purely a career based struggle. I think this could be multifactorial. And of course, with these questions, we don't really know, but I would say, really examine what are some of the things that you want in your job, what you don't want, what have you disliked in the past, but then really what this is really speaking more, I think, to both of us is where is the meaning outside of your work in your life, and what are some of these areas that you can bolster up, and whether those are like increasing your interpersonal relationships or just going out and like actually experiencing small things on a daily basis that just make you happier and more fulfilled. And it sounds crazy to be like, yeah, like go watch a sunset. And you're like, okay, is that really going to change my life? But literally
your attitude around that sunset might.
Yeah. And you just start to recognize things differently. So I think that when you've kind of gotten on the other side of this, you can really see it clearly. And you're able to, how I view it is more like able to extract more positive things from a situation instead of just being like, oh, there's a sunset. That's cool. Being like, wow, I'm going to fully immerse myself in this for these 5 minutes that I'm here. I'm going to be doing all of these things. They don't need to take a long time.
Right.
But literally, I'm going to dedicate these few minutes and be purposeful and be intentional and be present. And I can actually focus my energy here. And that's going to create a lot more meaning in other areas.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sending this question in. I really feel like this is going to resonate with a lot of people because I know many people struggle with this. I certainly did. I'm sure you did at some point as well. Really, almost everybody I know has. So thank you for sending this in. If you have any other questions that you would like to send us, we will put that below in the show notes. I will also put Rick's contact there as well. And for more information on one-on-one coaching and the app that we will be releasing very, very soon, visit teamlocofit.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you Wednesday.